Hey everyone, welcome back to Death Must Die's Act 3. So today we're going to have the age-old discussion, difficulty versus fun. Now, why am I bringing this one up today? So there's been a raging debate in the Death Must Die Discord this morning, all about broken items, the direction this game is heading in, and the fun versus just totally screen clearing. So in the background of this video, I'm going to show you a run that I did offline, just casually, and this is not using Sacrilege, which is a very, very broken item. I am not using that in this run, and you'll see as it progresses, things get very insane very quickly, right? So just before we get into the discussion, guys, we're getting really, really close to 1,600 subs on the channel. So if you do enjoy the Death Must Die content, hit subscribe for me to help us get there. So yeah, the discussion was pretty interesting. I mean, I think I understand the overall sentiment. I don't necessarily agree with the overall way it was discussed, though. I don't know. So what are we talking about? There are absolutely some very, very broken builds and items in the game right now. There has been since Act 3 launch. I mean, realistically, there was some pretty busted builds back in Act 2 as well. But the procedural patch kind of evened things out a bit there. But prior to the procedural patch, Act 2 was definitely had some like really, really crazy strong builds like Lorien, War Chief, Stomp, Cast Maris were all very, very strong back then. And then you had like Skadi and Nixie feeling pretty bad, right? So in the initial Act 3 launch, the game was pretty difficult, but for me, on a personal level, it wasn't really the difficulty per se. It was the crowd control. Number one was the crowd control stuff I didn't like, and number two is actually the character building. So the character building side of things here, I do understand. So what are we talking about? There's a few items in the game. Obviously, Sloth is a very, very strong item right now. There's the Novum Tavo, which gives you 300% luck and 300 evasion, which is pretty nuts. There's even stuff like Mausoleum of Eyes, which is 60% extra experience gain, which is pretty crazy. I mean, experience gain is very, very strong in this game. But the truth is, on some of these cracked builds, you don't even need the additional experience gain, right? I mean, so the one that's sort of come to my attention more recently is called Sacrilege. I literally never used it before the stream we did yesterday. So check out the stream. Maybe I'll pop a link to the stream we did yesterday in the description. But so this item basically just stacks up damage every time a power triggers, right? So you can combine it with something like Be Afraid, which is a gear affix, which will anytime anytime a shield breaks or like a barrier breaks, they become afraid, which is basically a power trigger. So that will has a chance to increase your damage by 100%. It's also a chance for it to be lowered by 30%, but the 100% is obviously more than 30%, right? So it just keeps stacking up and up and up. So it's totally busted. One of the runs we did, we ended up with, what was it, 200,000 damage, something like that, 250,000 percentage damage by the end, which is absolutely insane, totally busted, right? The truth of the matter is, though, it was fun as hell. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I don't find really, really strong broken stuff necessarily unfun, and I think this is kind of this mentality that, like, if something is strong, it's not fun. I don't really get behind. I gotta say, like, yes, it's totally busted and needs to be changed. I agree with that an item shouldn't give you 400,000% free damage or something. Obviously, that's totally busted, but it's fun as hell, man. So I'm not going to sit here complaining that it's in the game. The developers know that it's broken. They've already made comments on some of the really, really powerful uniques that are in the game. And they've taken on the feedback about the character building. I don't like some of the changes to the character building in the game because they removed all of the power out of the blessings, and then they gave us like huge cooldown reduction rolls, huge duration rolls on these gear pieces. So the build you're seeing in the background here does not use Sacrilege. It does not really use very many of the quote-unquote broken uniques. Instead, what this build is doing is stacking cooldown reduction, it's stacking duration for the casts, and it's stacking aspect of the Hydra with extra projectile count. And then I'm going for the black. What was it called? The black serpents with the evolution. And if you get your cooldown low enough, it can go under a second, like 0.8. I think I got it down to in one of the runs, something like that. As you can see, though, we're only 2.5 minutes in, and the screen is already getting pretty full of serpents. I guess we'll say that. As you can see, I'm just kind of leveling it. So yeah, the other thing is like the overall direction of the game. Like, is it going too far down the path of just like casual screen clearing? I think some of these builds absolutely have gone too far down that path, but you know, it the developers are already aware. I don't think we need to make the same complaints for weeks and weeks on end. Like, I've already given my feedback on that stuff. I know that the developers are aware of that. I don't know. The discussion in the in the Discord this morning was kind of insane. It just kept circling around on the same 2 points over and over again. It's a bad direction for the game to go. It's bad to say, oh, if you don't find something fun, don't use it. It's like, well, whatever, man. I think if you are genuinely at a point where this game is not fun for you, you should not be playing it just straight up. If it's like with any game, any RPG, any ongoing live service game, any roguelike, if it's in a current state that you're not enjoying the game, give them your feedback, sure, but then bounce and come back when they do a new update and see if it's to your liking. If it's not, maybe the game is just not for you. I mean, this is a loot character building game first and foremost in my eyes. Yes, it has roguelike type stuff going on. It's bullet heaven type stuff, whatever, but at its core, it is a loot grinding character building game. I want the loot and the builds to feel fun and viable, right? They don't have to be crazy OP. They don't have to be screen clearing all the time, right? But man, I mean, look at look at this nonsense. Where are we? Point up. I mean, just look at what is going on right here. And this is serpents only. I haven't really taken much else in this particular run. I know you can add like landslide on here. You could add light rays. You could add, I don't know, pick your favorite cast to add on here, right? So, and then just throw second bolt and urgency on from Lake Gong. You just casually screen clear everything the entire way through, right? So, yes, it is crazy strong and crazy broken. But yes, it is also fun as hell. So where do we end up here? I'd like to hear from you guys. Like, how much power should we get at Darkness 100 if you've min-maxed your gear, right? If you have grinded like, I don't know, 100 to 200 hours and you have like really good min-max gear, how powerful should you be? Should Darkness 100 be something that's a total pushover? Should I just be doing this? It's crazy. Or should there be more of a challenge here? Should we actually have to dodge a bit more? You know, from my perspective, I actually really liked the difficulty of Original Act 2 the most out of all of the errors of Death Must Die we've had. And there's a couple of reasons. Number one, the game was difficult. It was challenging, right? The bosses were reasonably tanky. You needed a good amount of damage. You needed good gear. You needed to grind. You needed game knowledge. But here's the difference. The loot character building was way less messy and convoluted. It made more sense intuitively how to build a character and how to use the skill trees and to clear that sort of stuff. How to use the stats with the blessings. All of that felt way more intuitive to me. And not only that, there were way better defensive options. I don't like the game really being balanced around the revives. That's another thing I called out earlier on in Act 3. I don't particularly like that. I preferred Act 2 where, yes, Lifeline was totally busted. I understand that. But you could still stack up like 450, around 400 HP on, let's say, Maris, for example, right? And you could buff up through protection, and you could put Curse of Weakness on, right? So there were multiple defensive options There was also the pre-changed races on Meris, which is... I loved that thing, man. I would be happy for them to just turn it back or give us a new unique that had the old racist functionality, which if you guys don't remember, it was plus 100% to heals, regens, and lifesteal. You could turn Meris into a regen queen. It was so much fun. I don't know. The new racist is good too, though, so it's like, I don't know. It is what it is at that point. But yeah, so the game gave you the means to build, craft your way through and around the challenge. Now, was that version of Act 2 like balanced? No, not really. You had Stompy Boy Kront, you had, as I said before, Castmaris and Basking Lorien that were pretty crazy, right? But it was still technically possible to get builds going on some of the other characters. I think Skadi was particularly bad in that patch, so she felt so underpowered. Nixie was pretty weak too. There were a few Nixie builds you could get away with. Avron was kind of in a weird spot because he's always had a couple of defensively strong builds, but his offensive builds weren't particularly great in that patch either. So, you know, it was still hit or miss, right? It wasn't perfect. I would have loved to have seen from that point on, like from that type of balance, just shave down the really, really crazy OP stuff and bring up the Nixie Skadi stuff that was really bad. And that would have been really, for me personally, that would have been really good. Because the game still would have been really difficult. You would still have to dodge. You'd still have to know the enemy attack patterns, all that sort of stuff, right? But you could build, as I said, you could build, craft your way through it with the right kind of gear affixes and, you know, game knowledge and all that sort of stuff. One of the other major things too, back then, I did not feel like it was this amount of dice was required. I used to go into a lot of my runs with 4 rerolls and 7 alterates, and still get some of the builds done. You know what I mean? Some of the builds you still want a little bit more than that, right? And more is always better with dice in this game. But right now, the character building feels way more convoluted. And the other thing is the gear affixes, right? As I mentioned before, the crazy amount of cooldown reduction, the crazy amount of duration you can stack on some of these gear pieces now is pretty insane. So it's like, yeah, why can't the blessings just be good? Why can't the blessings just be powerful and remove this nonsense? You shouldn't be, I don't know, stacking 80% duration on every single gear slot, and 130% on the chest piece. Like, I don't know, man. It's just like, I don't think that was an improvement. I think that was a step down because you've now made the gear affixes like way messier, right? Okay, Frog Boy down in like 3 seconds there. Yeah, I don't know. As you can see, the the run's getting kind of crazy here in the background already. With we added the orbs and stuff on here, or is that from the alteration ritual? That might be the ritual. I can't quite remember. We went kind of crazy in this run. We're 7 minutes in, level 47. Meris just doing pretty cracked Meris things right here. So at the end of the day, I err on the side of the game being fun and the character building being a little bit more like intuitive and understandable, and removing some of the bloat from the game. I still think that a lot of the negativity around this act has been the original design choices around the map itself, having just so much junk everywhere, around the excessive amount of crowd control, and then some of the changes, like we mentioned, to like all the gear affixes and all that sort of stuff, right? So, guys, I don't know. I would be really interested to know where you land on the current form of the game, the difficulty versus fun. As I said, I lean more towards the fun factor as, I don't know, do you really have to beat your head against something 25 times before you get a single clear? That doesn't feel that great to me either. I don't know. It is what it is. Let me know with a comment down below, guys. I'm going to end this one here. Thank you all for checking out the video. As I said, we're getting really close to 1,600 subs. So if you do enjoy the Death Must Die content on the channel, hit subscribe for me to help us get there. Now, hope you all have a fantastic, amazing day. Take it easy.